Hi everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations. You with Simon today. And again, we've got a new moon report to share, and I'm really excited about this one, as I am with all of them, to be honest. A lot is going on. A lot is going on for us, and I think many of you are probably going to get a lot out of today's conversation. I'm sure that you've been speaking to lots of friends around. You've been searching on the internet to look at the different ways that this energy is playing out. And so this is my little attempt to provide us with something that nourishes our capacity to digest what is transpiring for us right now, how to take advantage of it, and how to also offer some compassion to what it means to be human at this point in time, because wow, is it intense. So as we know, we're on a new moon solar eclipse, and of course this is for the 11th of August 2018. And for me personally, there's been quite a lot of amazing things happening, while at the same time somebody emailed me during the week and asked how I was managing this energy. And I'd said that, I felt, and I did, and I still do, I felt as if, or I feel as if I'm in a boat and I'm holding on for dear life. And I'm just like, where are we going? And so this has brought the comedy to this report as well, because even though we can have this insight, this capacity to psychologically digest what we're dealing with right now, we're still very much, very much in the experience where a lot of that doesn't really matter, right? Because this is it. This is what we're dealing with. We can have this knowledge, but we can still feel like, oh my God, we're being rocked from side to side. And there are experiences that some of you are having, including myself, because, with this Mercury retrograde, that are very positive and amazing. And then there is the other side of the story, which is also reflecting some intensity that makes you feel as if you are in that boat, just holding on for dear life, right? So I'm just trying to find a place to connect to that can allow us, or allow me to start sharing what I want to talk about today, because I feel like I've got lots to say. And the solar eclipse for us, of course, reflects the last eclipse that is taking place in this 3 series eclipse pattern that we've just recently gone through. So we had the solar eclipse happen in Cancer, and then we had the lunar eclipse happen in Aquarius, and now, of course, today we're having the next solar eclipse. And this is really interesting because, of course, the dynamic that's taking place for us right now has a lot of change, a lot of shifting for us that we would not necessarily experience in such a small period of time, right? And that probably contributes to a lot of the experience you might be having that makes you feel as if your brain circuits are being fried, right? And if this is happening to you, if you're actually experiencing this right now, it would be super cool for you to share that in the comments below after this video. If you're watching this video after the 11th, or in the chat, in the live stream itself. So we've got to acknowledge that. We've got to acknowledge that there's been some really, really intense, high volume energy that has been moving through us. And of course, that's going to have a deep impact on the way that we experience our lives, right? It's really interesting to look at the pattern because, again, it all started with the solar eclipse in Cancer, where every one of us experienced the initiation of a cycle that needed to come to an end. Okay, the core of this trajectory, right? So if you follow me here, if you sort of stay connected with what I'm talking about right now, the core of this energy has a lot to do with transmutation. It has a lot to do with a complete surrender of. Let's talk about it from this perspective: a complete rinsing out of old cellular memory that no longer represents an aspect of your reality going forward. Okay. So it's like we're all going through this huge detox. That would be a very great way to express this, that there's this detox and this purification. And of course, when we consume a detox program, right? If we let's just say that we're on this detox program, the first 2 to 3 days are going to feel really, really, really uncomfortable because the body is kind of like purging out the toxicity. It's purging out the junk that is a natural part of being human or being in existence, right? We're flying through space and we're just collecting stardust. And this is kind of like layering onto us, just as if you would clean or clean your office, for instance, or clean a part of your house that has just collected dust, right? It's a detox process, and it kind of agitates you until you decide to you know clean out the part of your house that needs to be decluttered, or and you experience that, like, right, the dust comes up and you're like, oh my god, and you cough maybe, or you try to move it away. You can see the particles moving away. So that solar eclipse in Cancer really shook us to the core, and it had a lot to do with this undercurrent of needing to let go of something. And of course, at the same time, Jupiter was going direct, so of course the insight for something that needed to end was very apparent. Okay. And then of course we moved through and we experienced then the lunar eclipse that happens in Aquarius. And this is the next phase of the cycle. So the solar eclipse, when we wrote the articles, myself and Jen, we saw it as a surrendering of yourself and then falling into something that was yourself. But the difference was letting go of yourself to fall into yourself, right? So it was almost as if you needed to let go of this attachment, this ego attachment to how you perceived yourself and what you thought you were supposed to be doing, and how you were conditioned, particularly being conditioned to operate at a level or a way that the truths of society and the truths of your parents and the experiences that you've witnessed in your life that have influenced the perception that you thought you needed to sort of mold into, that on some level you knew that this wasn't really who you were, but you kind of had to go with it as a mechanism of survival, right? And so we get this lunar eclipse that comes along, and this is the phase where we begin identifying. Okay, we identify within ourselves that there is something within us, something that is deep within us, that has to be liberated from. There must be something that we must liberate from. So we became aware of this. A sudden change took place for us with the solar eclipse in Cancer. And then through that fragmentation, we observed this process of liberation. We were beginning to acknowledge that this intensity that we are witnessing and experiencing and digesting had some storyline to it, even if it appeared completely random and it didn't really make sense. The storyline wasn't connecting, right? And what's really important to note about this experience for us, this current sort of flow of energetic evolution that we're a part of, that we are embodying, that is essential to our evolutionary growth, because we all chose to be born at a specific time, and that specific time reflected an ongoing evolutionary cycle individually for us. And of course, the time that we get born in at a generational level reflects to us how that ongoing individual process is influenced and is aided, right? So we all chose to come through this period of time to do some of this work in our own specific way. So of course, this lunar eclipse really made us feel fragmented and all over the place, and there wasn't really any sense of connectedness within ourselves. And yet, ironically, the intention was to allow for freedom to be present with us. Now think about what freedom means with inside of yourself. Think about where creativity comes from. How many of you have tried to be deeply creative when under stress, or when you weren't calm within yourself, or when there wasn't enough space to breathe for creativity and inspiration to arise out of, right? These are the breeding grounds that are absolutely necessary for creativity, and at least quality of creativity to cultivate from. So this dynamic of Aquarius, the lunar eclipse in Aquarius, was really essential to create space for the solar eclipse that's now present with us right now. Okay. And I think what's important to note about this solar eclipse in Leo is that even though it's a solar eclipse and it provides deep, profound insight as to living more in unity with what it means to be your authentic self, okay, we are not at a point where that is fully present with us, because we are still working inwardly within ourselves, right? There's still, remember, I think it was a couple of moons ago, it was just before the retrograde season started, I said, okay, bye everybody, let's go into our inner sanctuary, and let's go nurture our garden, and let's go work there. Well, where we are right now is in that internal process, and we're reaching the ending of that cycle, okay? Not with Pluto being direct, or not with Neptune being direct, or not with Uranus being direct. The outer planets are still retrograde. So it's not like the ending of the cycle is occurring for us right now. What I mean is that with Mars going direct at the end of this month, with Mercury eventually going to be going direct as well within a couple of days' time, we are at the end of the internalization process, where we are deeply absorbed in our own inner landscaping, and we're aligning with something. So this solar eclipse was about alignment process, okay? But the specifics of the alignment were things like, what do you consider to be essential for your life? What do you consider to be the truth of your existence, and why does it matter to you? Okay. Where do you find fulfillment, joy, and synchronicity, and alignment, and receptivity for yourself? Where do you see in your life that experiences nourish you? And I'm not talking about, because this was part of the processing that myself and Jen had done with this new moon, was it's very easy for us to get attracted to something that on the surface appears beautiful, right? And so we can tend to grab at experiences that are appealing on the surface and provide us with instant gratification, versus cultivating and nurturing and working with an experience that provides nourishment, that gives continuously over and over, right? So the example that was used in the literature that we're reading was, you could pick the flower, and the flower would provide you with momentary joy because of its coloring, and you'd put it in your house, but then it would eventually die. Whereas if you could plant a bed of roses, it would sustain over a longer period of time a deeper nourishment. Now, again, I've edited this thing slightly in terms of how this works, But it's like, what we really want to be doing is we want to be becoming more supportive or more in tune with deeper nourishing experiences that awakens us to deeper layers of fulfillment, deeper layers of nourishment, deeper layers of understanding. Okay. But not even understanding on a mental plane, more along the lines of like deeper layers within ourselves as we explore our inner space, right? So one of the things that I wrote down for this new moon was the art of presence. And I can tell you something. Today was one of those days where, man, did I have to practice what I wrote and what I'm sharing with you today. I think that my two kids that are 3 and 5, they must have been sort of like amplifying this solar eclipse energy as well, because they were just all over the place. It was nuts. I honestly, like, today felt to me like it was just complete and utter circus act. And it was nuts. It was like the energy would fluctuate from calmness to complete insanity, and then it would go in these polarities, and it would literally feel that if you weren't present in the moment with something and you got swept away by this energy, you would land up on shore somewhere and be like, okay, how did I glitch out? Like, oh my god, I just survived that, right? And part of the art of presence was being present with the situation and asking yourself, do I need to detach from this experience and see it from a different perspective? Do I need to be, where am I in this process? And if you weren't present with that process, you could find yourself just being overwhelmed. That's my direct experience of it. And it links up with this important alignment that I was talking about with the North Node and Mercury and the Moon and the Sun or in Leo over there. That presence through the heart and listening through the heart would provide such connection. Okay, would provide such connection. Yet when we're overwhelmed and we're sort of like caught up in the stress and the more sort of neurologically based experience of life, in other words, all in the mental plane, it can feel so you can feel so detached that you can't be present with the heart, and because of that not being present with the heart, you can't emotionally connect with another person. And I think that, not I think, I know that this solar eclipse, because it's landing very close, in fact it's landing on the planetary nodes of Neptune, we're dealing with an even deeper layer here that we're trying to heal. And this is the other side of the story over here, which is that the mechanics of this energy right now are deeply, deeply like intense, especially because of Mercury being so conjunct the Sun at this point in time. And I'll go deeper into that in terms of how this energy is actually through the purging, through the decluttering, through the detoxing process, right? The cells within our body are actually being reconstructed. So like the old nervous system is being burnt out, and there is a new one that is regenerating in its process. So being fried out at this point in time is something that is deeply connected with the Mercury Sun connection, and of course with everything in Aquarius, which is electricity. Being fried out is the old electrical system literally being replaced with a new electrical system. And the Mercury is communication, but it's communication with regards to the nerves, right? The electrical system is a Uranian component, but the communication that exists with the nervous system is Mercury. And of course, our nervous system in itself, because of it being so impacted by the neutrinos and by the context of what information is being held within the neutrino stream at this stage as it moves through us, of course, this would reflect a complete release of outdated and stagnant dendrites. In other words, dendrites are the actual neurological it's the actual matter in the brain that makes up the neuroplasticity. So when we think about conditioning, when we think about, and I'm going off on a tangent of you a little bit, just for anybody that might be confused about the fact that that's what I do. I'm going on a little bit of a tangent over here, but I'm going to bring it back to you. I'll show you. When we detox within something, the cells within our body regenerate. And so this is an energy of regeneration. But the regeneration is taking place simultaneously with the release of genetics within ourselves or cellular memory within ourselves that no longer supports fulfillment and integration and acceptance and being present. So here's the present part, right? The art of being present. Here's how this is working for us. The planetary south nodes of Neptune sit in Aquarius and Leo, and they reflect to us the nature of human spirituality. Okay. Now, you must understand something, guys, that when you think about astrology, I don't know how you interpret it or how you perceive it in your life, but to me, when I look at astrology, what I see is cycles of energetic awareness that develop. And so the sun and the moon cycle reflects, you know how the Fibonacci sequence will open like that, as an example, as the vibration lands out? Okay, so think of each. This is just for clarification when it comes to the context of understanding planetary nodes. Think of the energetic frequency that is opening itself like that with the sun and the moon, right? Very, very slowly, and we can perceive it because it's right close to us. Think of the planetary nodes as this huge, but very, very slowly opening energetic portal or like conditioning field, the cycle that is moving so slowly, but over a period of, say, for instance, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years, is imprinting the backdrop. In other words, the framework of what it means to be human and how we perceive ourselves, right? So the conditioning field at such a profound level that for us to conceptualize it through the mind, it actually becomes deeply overwhelming, as if to go, how far is 352 million light years? It's very difficult to grasp. So the same thing with planetary nodes. But when you begin to reach into understanding the impact that it has on the human race, well, you don't need to look very far to see the wound of narcissism that we carry within ourselves, each of us. Okay, the narcissistic wound, the mother wound, the father wound, the wound of separation that says somewhere along the lines, I didn't receive that validation or that acknowledgement, or I didn't feel like I was recognized as a child. My parents weren't able to give me the attention and love that they wanted to give me because of obligations and duties and expectations and stresses that were happening at the time of their capacity to parent. And so somewhere along the lines, each of us carries with us a emotional aspect, a part of our emotions, our emotional identity that is still trapped in that childlike state of seeking that validation, that external validation, seeking that part of us, or seeking to have that need of love fulfilled. Okay. So the art of being present is that if we are to heal the parts of ourselves and to find deeper connection with our children, with our friends, with the people around us, we need to recognize that before this point, a lot of our conditioning that has been the framework, the backdrop of our existence, okay, has been influenced by a disconnect between the heart and the mind, right? The cognitive development in the heart. We don't listen with the heart. And when we don't listen with the heart, we don't fully connect. And when we don't fully connect, we don't fully feel. And when we don't fully feel, that doesn't allow us to be present for whatever that moment is doing to nourish us. And so we don't really get the full value and the depth that is available to us in each moment when we fully connect with it, when we're fully present with it. And I'm sharing this with you right now because I'm one of those people that sees that that is something that's deeply important, but I don't pretend to get that right all the time. Like I said, today was that day where I had to be that. Like my children were all over the place, just completely and utterly couldn't get them grounded. And there were moments where I would get frustrated, right? There were moments that I would get angry, and I would need, because I'm the parent in this situation, and I have this potential cognitive awareness to say, okay, obviously here I can use astrology, I can objectify this experience, but they can't. So imagine what that must be like for all of us that have had that experience at some point in our lives, and where we needed to have our parents come back down to us and speak to us at our level and say, hey, I can see you're really, really sad at this point in time, and you're sad because the Lego pieces are broken and you really loved that, and you know, that means a lot to you in that stage, and that's, you know, we never got that, right? Most of us, and when we did get that, when we did have that, it was a really amazing experience, right? And I'm not saying that every single person's broken, although I unfortunately do hold the belief that as much as you've had a wonderful childhood, there are parts of your psyche that have had trauma experiences, whether it be from past lifetimes. We all have some wounding with us. And one of our biggest wounds that we carry is the wound of our narcissistic wound. And it's simply that the part of ourself has never got that feeling of just being embraced. And that's a fundamental thing that exists within the limbic system, you know? There are the pituitary gland responds by sending out a hormone that is oxytocin. So when we experience touch, and that of course allows us to feel more trusting in that experience, right? That feel good feeling. And then, you know, the endorphins when we experience pain, when we have separation. We live in a dualistic environment. So of course, when we're in separation, we don't see unity. So we're not using the third eye. It's the two eyes are not unified into one. We don't see that. And because we don't see that, of course, we have deep layers of resentment and anger and frustration and pain and all of that present with us. And this is what this new moon really holds in potential for us, is that capacity to really know that each of us on some level carries an unresolved wound, that what we do is we seek to get, basically what happens is here, right? We don't know this wound is within us. It's one of the deepest teachings, you know, like I'm doing it right now. Like I'm actually going to do it right now, right? One of the things that I feel very strongly about is that it's important to begin, or it's important to note that teachings on Chiron, as an example, hold, when we talk about wounding, you know, when we talk about wounding on Chiron, it's like a language. It's like, oh, there's a wounding in Chiron, right? This is the wounded part of me. But do we really emotionally embody or understand that for ourselves? Like, do we really grasp what it means to understand Chiron in our birth charts and the woundedness, and why does it happen? That's why when you go back to my channel, you'll see that I specifically like try to drill it into you and drill it into myself and drill it into somebody that's willing to listen. Willing to listen is the narcissistic wound, yeah. That it has to do with Saturn and Uranus. So much. Why? Because Chiron also is that sensitivity within us, right? That we're unable to actually communicate to the rest of the world that we have this sensitivity. So there's a part of us inside of us that carries this wound around our something not being able to be met at a young age. or met even in adulthood through relationships, as an example, because of the construct of society and the definitions and the needs of the societal structure up until this point in time. And this is the point of this paradigm shift. Anyway, the point here is that, or the leading edge here is, I hope you're following me with this, is that this narcissistic wound sits with us because, because it sits with us, and we seek to, we go outside of ourselves and we look for something that's going to remove the pain. And what we do is, when we find that thing that symbolizes removing the pain, we cling to that. And then we use that as a way to support the feeling of lack that we have within us, the feeling as if there wasn't enough love available to us. And this is what perpetuates this consistent need to fill or feel the feel-good feeling. And we train our brain neurologically to consistently go back to that point in order for us to get that feeling. And the variation of this wound dictates is dependent on how damaged this part of us is. You know, there are, and this is a big thing. I mean, you can go onto the internet and find it all over the place. That there are a lot of work there's a lot of work that's being done on trying to heal it, and even the fact that that exists in itself is revealing it. And it's a very big thing, and the point here that I wanted to bring that ground it back into this new moon in Leo is because Leo is the archetype, along with the Scorpio archetype and Aquarius and Taurus, that actually contains, that will reveal to you how the narcissistic wound develops. And I'll do a whole video on that at some point. So I've been wanting to do that for a long period of time, the astrology of narcissism, to show you how that actually works, because I feel like it will be something really valuable. Anyway, the point here is that the thing here is that at the root of something that we feel lacking within us cultivates the awareness to say that we need to fulfill it. And when we begin to fulfill that outside of ourselves, we need that supply consistently. And sometimes it's not even apparent. Sometimes it shows up as we just have a lot of anger within ourselves that is rooted in a different timeline. And that was the other part. That's the next phase of this video. And that was that it's the mystery is in our history. Okay, so if you notice, you've got Chiron in opposition to Venus. Venus is squaring Saturn, Chiron is squaring Saturn, and you'll notice that Saturn's at 3 degrees, Venus is at 4, Chiron's at 3, right? So this is where the wounding sits. This is where the context here. Venus in opposition to Aries. Venus in opposition to Chiron. Because Venus shows up and says, how have we, through the other, had our needs met? And then when we link up with something that's outside of ourselves, that cycle gets fulfilled and we need to control it. Right? So this is how relationship dynamics work. We create boundaries around our relationships to define it so that we feel safe within it. But at the same time, we are also creating that boundary to feel safe in it relative to our own unresolved emotions that exist within us, that need to be purified, that need to be cleansed out. So this need for the other, or need for the what we would call it our medicine, as an example, or our poison, we would call it our poison, right? Our addiction, whatever our addiction is, that would be where we are trying to soothe the pain and we put a veil over it. And this energy right now is like pushing at it consistently and saying, remove that veil, remove that veil, remove that veil. Because if you are to fully step out of the trauma, Mars retrograde in Aquarius, Mars on the South Node, if you had to fully step out of that trauma and reintegrate yourself in a way that is about feeling in thriving, in a capacity to thrive, you can't be stuck in survival mode. And survival mode is the wounded part of us. It's the part of us that is in survival mode because it's saying that this is where I'm stuck. Right? So the mystery is in our history, is because chronologically our bodies move along a timeline. Right? So this is your birthday, you age. And so you can be 60 years old and have this body that represents maturity, and yet emotionally you could still be 23 years old. And this is the point here, is that when what I want to invite everybody to do when you're looking at astrology is to ask yourself this question: do I want to use astrology as a way to awaken or open the doorway to my own inner space and to see the inner landscape, or do I want to use it to fulfill a certain need for understanding the future based on a fear? Or, and we can use it for all of those tools. I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but it really does have a profound level of potential if we saw it as something that was opening us up inwardly, right? If we saw inwardly within ourselves and we went backwards. And when we go inwardly within ourselves, we begin to look at our history. And when we begin to look at our history and we go backwards like that, and we accelerate at that space, we actually find ourselves going forward. Now, what do you mean by that? What I mean by that is that we are going forward chronologically in terms of a physical matter. But when we travel backwards, metaphysically, we actually open up and clear out everything that is holding us back, so that when we are actually experiencing the movement of us moving forward, we're actually bringing all of us with us, and not just the shadows or witnessing the fragments of our own decay behind us. You understand what I mean by that? So, and it's beautiful because Aquarius correlates to time travel. It correlates to the capacity to recognize the fifth dimension. And it also opens us up to understanding that when we go back into those parts of ourselves and we reparent it, right? So the reparenting here is the inconjunct between Pluto and Saturn, as it inconjuncts all of the Sun, Mercury, and the Moon in Leo, and of course then Neptune in Pisces, right? When we travel back in time and we illuminate the frozen fractal that we experienced at that stage, and we liberate ourselves, i.e. we liberate the identity that's stuck there, and we reunite with it, we rekindle the experience, we embrace it. I mean, when you go to therapy, you are doing the polarity point to trauma, right? So Aquarius is trauma because it's fragmented, it's frozen in time. And what thaws the frozenness is the Leo archetype of the sun. So when we step into that space of understanding the different layers, it's like those Russian dolls, you know, when you open it up and there's a little small one inside and a little small one inside and a little small one inside. Imagine your multidimensional self as that. And that the one that's the biggest doll in itself is your personality. And what you want to do is you want to code that personality to not look outwardly and say, I've got to be there, I've got to achieve that. This is what success means. This is how I've got to be defined. That's where purpose lies. But really actually to say to yourself, I will measure success through my ability to open up to the smallest parts and then to awaken that smallest part so that it radiates outwardly and it influences the outer doll from the inside. So we actually take layers of fragmented emotion, we free them, and then they radiate outward like that. And so this is the story here, right? So we're all born with this unique potential. We're all born with the capacity to be deeply cognitive around what is here for us to see and here for us to understand and to nurture. And yet what we have is an outward perception of what we think we need to be doing. And we have a society, we have an old paradigm that has done its job. It's run its course. The cycle has ended. It's decaying. Let it go, let it go, let it go. Just allow it to naturally unfold in the way that it needs to unfold, and observe that safety and security and alignment exists with an inner journey. Go backwards in time, not forwards, right? Because that decaying paradigm was deeply, deeply invested in how much of your narcissistic wound you weren't aware of, how much dependency you needed to have on the system. In other words, the more you could give the system and the more the system could take from you, the more viable you were. The more independent, the more individuated, the more unique you were, the less value you had. So you came in with two things. You learned over time through conditioning, South Node in Aquarius, Neptune South Node in Aquarius. You knew that in order to be in alignment with your identity, you had to then live on the outskirts of reality, and you couldn't really experience the fruits of the system. And if you were to be part of the system, you knew that in order to create security, you had to sacrifice individuation. And this is not always the case. This is not like 100%. But for the majority of you that are sitting here today, that are part of the world that doesn't have all of the money or all of the abundance from the perspective of what the society defines as abundant, you will understand what this plight is about. The way of integration is beautifully allowed to be present here with the trines that are occurring with Venus and the South Node and Mars, of course, right? And Jupiter and Neptune. There's this beautiful supporting energy that says the more that we integrate the new paradigm, the polarity of the old paradigm, the more you integrate the polarity of the old paradigm, the deeper your experience is going to become around understanding the mystery and the mysticism and the amazement of what it means to actually be awake during this time, even if it is deeply, deeply disturbing. Because we're not at a point in our story where everything seems to be golden agey, right? And for any of you that have this idea of golden aginess, if I'm going to trigger you right now, I'm sorry, but that's the case. It's just my own subjective opinion. But we need to let go of that ego blissful state. It's not something that we're going to recreate. We are here right now dealing with this right now. And where we are right now in this moment over here, and the art of being present, is that each of us needs to tend to the awakening of your own individuality, to understand it, to recognize it, to cultivate it, to give it presence, to be present with it. Okay? So that the search to fulfill the belief that something is lacking in you ends. And the acknowledgement of your own personal gifts are there. They've just been drenched in bullshit and crap and nonsense and things that are not you. And what you want to do is you just want to take a windscreen wiper and go, thank you very much. Move out the way, move out the way. Oh, I can see clearly. Wow, look, hold on. What's that? What's that fragment of light? Oh, that's me. Right, and just move it out like that. This is as if I'm swatting a fly that's around me. It's been a really, really intense couple of weeks. I can definitely say that. And as long as we keep just allowing ourselves to be present with what we're dealing with right now and to be supportive of our own personal journeys and of other people, and cultivate the arc. I wanted to create a video during the week that was called the arc, and it was a random act of kindness. So today I would like to do that, and I'd like to encourage everybody to make it a mission to, through this next week, do one arc experience, one random act of kindness, a random act of kindness. And it doesn't have to, it's not through guilt, it's not through a feeling of whatever it is. It's simply just the acknowledgement of a place inside of yourself that you can honor as abundant, and allow that trust of abundance to be the thing that shares with another person, where it nourishes their experience of life that gives them the potential or the hope that not every single day could be whatever it is, but just to hold space for a moment for another person to that you could potentially give. And again, the idea with the exercise here is to do two things: is to acknowledge that with Venus and Libra, the spiritual lesson of Libra is inclusion. It's to feel heard, and just for a moment to just be present with another person and to just mirror back to them what it is that they shared as a way of acknowledging their narcissistic wound. And it's not a conscious thing. You don't need to go and do that. I'm just saying, just be present with that and allow yourself to be present with that within yourself as well, okay? Thank you very much, my friends. I'm going to do just a bunch of Q&A for everybody. But before I do that, I'd like to show or just share that on this solar eclipse, Leo energy, Raising Vibrations has officially upgraded and received its beautiful new logo, and I'm sure you guys can see that over there. We've been super fortunate to work with somebody that has truly got a talent. And so Raising Vibrations has a new logo. We were really excited to hear, myself and Jen, to say, like, should we post it? Should we put it up and be present with that experience? Because it's, to us, it means a lot. Of course, the logo has got the 3 circles in it, and it reflects myself, my consciousness, and reflects Jen's consciousness, which is the 2 circles. And then what's birthed out of that experience is Raising Vibrations, which is held the flame. And that flame, which is in the middle of our logo, reflects the illumination we hope to hold as what this work is about. So that's what it's there, and it's been there. So I'm going to attempt. I would really like to say thank you so much to the person that created it, which is Irina. And your surname is pronounced Stanchulesky. I don't think I got it right, but I'm going to post in the comments right now, if it's okay with you, Irina, to her website and to the work that she does. I highly recommend this soul. If you are interested or would like to see what Irina actually works with, I've just linked in the chat below. Almost there. Stanchulescu. Did I get it right? I looked up the Romanian pronunciation, or Jen did actually, and so just for our entertainment, we're practicing it a little bit there, just so that I could get that right. But anyway, the point is that for anybody that's watching this video and you would like to go and see what work that she does, she doesn't just do graphic design with regards to logos. She creates videos and all sorts of other things. And in the chat is a link to her work, and I do also actually saved it up over here as well. I'm just going to ask you a quick question, Irina. Would you like me to link your Facebook as well? Or are you, all the information on how to contact Irina is actually on that page, and you can go and see the work that she does. So yeah, I'll post it one more time, just so that, and I'll also link it in the description as well and in the comments, so that anybody that's watching this video after the fact can see that. Okay, excellent. So, and what's even more sort of exciting for us in terms of the way that we've just released our new logo, Raising Vibrations, our new website has been during this Mars retrograde and this Mercury retrograde, it's being under construction. And so our new website is going to be coming out at some point. I probably suspect when Mars goes direct, or maybe a little bit earlier, depending on how friendly this energy is. And also our online astrology schools. So we're going to be, I've just finished creating the framework for all of the 12 archetypes, and I'll be recording them. And at some point, we're going to have a wholly, fully automated beginners or foundation, all the way through to advanced evolutionary astrology course, and that is going to be done, and then also a certificate program that comes along with that. And I'm really excited to share that. I've got a couple of a lot of work to do still in it, but for those of you that are really wanting to learn EA and are drawn to this type of work, at some point it's going to be available where you can just study it on the website and